All right. We are grateful, Lord, for the beauty of this day and for your presence with us individually up to this time of Rotary Fellowship. We commit this meeting to you and seek your blessing on the food in our fellowship. Thankfully we pray. Amen. All right. So, next on my list, guests or visiting Rotarians. Do we have any guests in the house?
I have a guest.
Go ahead, Jim.
I would just say, Carolina Performing Arts had a wonderful opening this weekend. The Philadelphia Orchestra was there on Wednesday and Thursday night. For those of you who were there, it was wonderful. And so, in that context, I'd like to introduce my guest today. Please stand. Robbie O'Connor, who is the development director for Carolina Performing Arts.
Jennifer Blair has a guest.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize Dr. Jerry Bell, who's our speaker today, has some folks from the Bell Leadership Institute. And so if y'all just want to wave, we won't introduce everybody individually. We just wanted to bring you welcome.
All right. Linda has a guest.
My guest is Jess Anderson, who's a friend and neighbor. This is her second visit, so I'm hoping we're on a pathway here. And you might recognize her name. She's a member of our town council.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Pam.
My guest is my husband, Wayne Herman. Next Friday I will be here because we will be celebrating our 50th wedding.
Oh.
All right. All right. Any visiting Rotarians in the house?
Mark.
Oh, we got a visiting.
Just
You've been
transfer
here
over here.
Mark Cleary, Oxford.
I think I've seen Mark here, I mean, probably for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I've seen you here off and on.
25.
Nice. All right, well, speaking of 20 years, I'm going to throw this down on you guys. Did you realize that 20 years ago, this month, they were getting ready to release the Return of the King, the last 3 movies in the Lord of the Rings saga? 20 years ago, right? Right. And, I grew up in Los Angeles in the movie, kind of around the movie business, and I had a friend growing up, and he was in TV, he was a movie child actor, right? And, we was kind of, ribbed him a little bit about it. And then as he got older, I remember we were sitting just kind of having lunch, he and I, and we were ribbing him a little bit, and then he's like, they're trying to get me to do a love scene, right? But they're just trying to find the right part. Of course, one of us said, what? You don't have the right part? Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, thank you very much over there, thank you, all right. So, all right, well, sometimes being sergeant at arms, it's kind of like a long, slow train wreck, right? It can either be really good or it can be really good, right? But I'm going to give you guys the option. This is going to be a choose-your-own-adventure here, right? We can talk about local or national politics, or I can tell you submarine stories. Because I was on a submarine, right? And my very first day of induction in the Rotary, I got up here and I mumbled a few words, and I forgot to mention that. And then Cliff came up afterwards and said, hey, did you know this guy was on the submarine? And so I figured I'd spin a few submarine tales. That's all right. The funny thing about sailors is we tell a lot of stories, and some of them are even true. So I'll let you decide which ones are true or not. So I was in the Navy on a submarine in the 90s, and during that time, of course, we weren't really technically, doing much with Russia, but there was this little thing going on in Serbia, Croatia, right? Some guy named Milosevic, and I was on the submarine. We were tasked as part of the NATO blockade, right? And so we're supposed to just keep all the material coming over from Italy over to Serbia and Croatia. And our main job in the blockade was to prevent the 2 old Russian diesel subs they had in port there from coming out and maybe potentially trying to break the blockade, right? That was our job. But because we were underwater and nobody could really see us, we would just kind of go in a circle, and we were supposed to just track everything that we would see coming. Because, there was always these guys who were just running the blockade, these little cigarette butts. coming across, and we got to track them and send up a, send a message up to the eyes in the sky, and then they transport. So we can't really stop everybody. We're just supposed to stop the big stuff coming through. But what else we tracked is we had these two little guys coming out every day to fish, right? They were coming off the coast, and they just have a little fishing boat, and they throw their lines in. We had to keep track of them, right? Because we didn't want to inadvertently hit them, right? With our periscope, we're sitting there looking around. And so we had to keep track of those guys. And of course, it was the mid-90s, so what was the big thing at that time? You guys remember Hans and Franz? Yeah, we pump you up, right? Saturday Night Live. So we had to call them Hans and Franz, right? And I was part of the tracking crew, so I'm up there. We got to mark everything on the map and where we're going and where everybody else is. So we just got to keep track of Hans and Franz, right? So here we go. So one day, sure enough, this cargo ship tries to run the blockade. It's coming out of Italy. It's like this hauling, moving, and they must have just tried it perfect. They're just coming, and we thought they were going to make it. So we're tracking them, and then all of a sudden, out of the port comes these two little gunboats with like torpedoes and some pretty big guns. They're coming out, and then all of a sudden, you see this helicopter coming out on the horizon from the north, and you see this frigate coming down. I mean, it's hauling, right? And we're tracking all this stuff happening, but sure enough, thank goodness, the frigate got there, stopped ship from coming across. They went and they boarded the ship, and they turned it back. But these two little gunboats are just sitting there, like you could just see their radars are spun up, and they're getting ready. And we're pretty tense, right? And of course, right in the middle of this is Vermont. So I can just imagine what they're thinking, right? So thank goodness cooler heads prevailed. But about 12 hours later, I was sitting in my rack, kind of dozing. And all of a sudden, you hear this explosion, boom, and the entire submarine shakes, right? And so I'm like rolling out, grabbing my poopy suit, grabbing my boots, getting ready to go to battle stations, and I'm like just halfway there. And they start saying, hey, everybody, stand down. It's just Hans and Franz. They're fishing with dynamite. Wow, right? So, all right. So the last submarine story I'm going to tell, I don't want to, drag it on too long because we have a very, very prestigious speaker today. It was about the time we went up north, right? And so when you go up north, you got to break through the ice, and you get out and you walk around, and you got to be careful, right? Because there's these polar bears up north. Like everybody go up north and see polar bears, they look cute, but I got news: they want to eat your face. Like Coca-Cola did a great job, like selling the polar bear, but they're pretty mean. So anyway, when you break through the ice, you got to stick a guy up in the sail. He's got an M16. He's supposed to know how to shoot, but I don't know. I use some of those guys. I couldn't shoot nothing. But anyway, they also gave us this polar bear, anti-polar bear kit, which was a can of peas, right? So I'm like, what? Like, no, that's what you got to do, right? All right. Like, look, you go out there, when you're out there, you just dig a hole in the ice. Okay. And then you open up the can of peas, and you stick the peas around the hole, and you wait. And when the bear comes up to take a pee, kick him in the ice hole. All right, President Mike.
Oh, great. Thanks, Brian. How's everybody today? Great. Good.
Leave it off.
Is it on? Is this?
There we go. Now I'm booming. Hey, for you that don't know me, I am this year's president, Mike Clayton, and just happy to be here today. It is great to see such a large crowd here. We got I think it's going to be a tremendous program today. Lorenzo, I think you had a quick announcement for us, please.
Yeah, Mike, thanks. I just want to raise to everyone's attention that now is the time of year when we start talking to kids, largely high school kids, about overseas exchange opportunities. It can be summer exchanges. As you remember, we had a girl from Spain and Germany about a couple summers ago. That was just for the summer. And also a year-long exchange, which you could also consider a gap year. So if you know kids in the community who might be interested in these, there's a lot of guidelines, but we'll be having an information session on November 2nd. And of course, I'm available to answer questions because there are a lot of questions parents have. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Also, everybody, I'm assuming saw emails and scuttlebutt this week with the tremendously large, big news that next week will be our last meeting here at the Sheraton. We have decided to take East Chapel Hill Rotary to the Sandcar Cultural Center on Franklin Street. We're looking forward to a great partnership there with these folks. It's a beautiful facility. We've got parking for everybody. We're going to have excess parking at the ballet school next door. There's a nice little walkway that takes you over there. We have caterers lined up to start out with. Tim Smith and John Perry and myself will be working on that for the coming weeks. I'm very excited about this. And now I'm really excited to bring up Jennifer Plater to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, President Mike. Well, you have Dr. Jerry Bell's bio in front of you, so hopefully you've had a chance to read it. You got it in scuttlebutt earlier this week as well. For over 60 years, Dr. Jerry Bell has traveled the world bringing his leadership tenets to executives and leaders all over. And you probably would know some of the names of some of the folks that he's had the opportunity to work with. I have been privileged to attend some of the sessions here in Chapel Hill. And in my opinion, I think what really sets Dr. Bell's philosophy apart is what's on top of the notepad that you have there, which is that the focus really is, if you want to build a great company, you have to build yourself first. And it's really this personal connection that I think, you know, when you look over 60 years of impact of Dr. Jerry Bell, perhaps maybe the most important legacy that he is leaving is on the person and the relationships. So certainly at work with coworkers, executives, etc., but also in families. And so I just want to say thanks to Dr. Bell for making an impact on me and probably many, many folks that he will never know. And now I'd like to welcome up Dr. Jerry Bell to share a bit of his leadership wisdom with us today.
Thank you. By the way, isn't Jennifer a specimen?
Yes.
Quite wonderful. Hey, thank you so much. It's I love seeing all of my friends here. And being at home. Say it again. But I love seeing all of you, and it's just a very, very lovely experience because I usually am somewhere in the world with a lot of people I haven't met, and many of you I've known for many, many years. Quite a treat to see everybody. So one thing I'd love to do, we have, Jennifer has said, we have our team members, and we're really lucky to have phenomenal human beings working with us at what we call Bell Leadership Institute. So let me just introduce them. One is John Plater, Jennifer's husband, back there, one of our great trainers, spectacular human being who went to Carolina and studied biology and other things, and then he went to law school, and then he became a lawyer, and then
he got a job.
But he made a great career switch, and we spent a lot of time talking about, do you really want to do this, from being a lawyer to a person who builds people. And it takes a long time to learn to do the kind of things we do. One thing I have learned, it takes a lot longer to learn, being a clinician or a specialty than you would assume. But and I found for individuals like you, you have so much experience, you learn so much, you forget what you didn't know, and it seems relatively easy to explain. So, but John's a phenomenal, talented person. Susan Gisler over here also worked in the hospital and headed up the big division in the hospital. And we were very fortunate that she made the choice to join us and really go into building leaders and building organizations. And then, let's see, I'll just go around. Christina Wise back there is one of my key leaders and assistants. And Sarah, raise your hand too. Also great team members. And Lizzie, where are you? know Lizzie, one of our great UNC grads, and met her while she was just finishing school and been with us many years, growing and learning. And then Amy Hagan, it's almost 25 years. Phenomenal talent. Been with us all over the world. And let's see, who have I not? Did I get everybody? So, but a footnote, one thing I've learned over time is that we specialize a lot in selecting leaders. So how do you actually pick out a person who fits your organization and will enhance what you do and work well with everybody? So one of the things we've learned is we really work hard on hiring people who have the same mission we do. So our mission, and certainly my mission for living, is to build leaders. And the reason for that is from going around the world a lot, and by the way, I'm nothing special, I just happen to spend a lot of time doing this, and you learn a lot in that time. But going around a lot and being in a lot of countries, seeing poverty and hillsides in Argentina or Chile where people are living in little huts, so the streets of Bombay in India where people are starving, from the airport through downtown Mumbai now, that people sleeping on the sidewalks by the thousands and not having food or livelihood. So I spent a lot of time out in the world to cure poverty or nutrition and housing and all the things we all want to do. And spent a lot of time thinking about that and really come to the conclusion that the only real solution for world problems is having highly effective human beings who build highly effective organizations, who then hire people, educate them, provide income, pride, personal opportunities to achieve, but then have money to pay for food and education, taxes, and ultimately the root cause and the root opportunity is building people who then become highly effective to be an effective leader. So it's one thing we've learned after many, many years of research is the main cause of becoming effective in building an organization that you have to become an effective person first. The best decision you've ever made in your life, the best decision you should tell your children when you leave here and your grandchildren is start today to reinvest, to accelerate your building yourself. And it's the simple way to think about it is each of us has weaknesses and strengths. And your children, if they started early, the key is build more strengths and reduce more weaknesses. And every 1 or 2% you become more effective as a human being, you make the world a better place. And you increase your chances of personal success and happiness and contribution. The biggest gift you can give to having students go international or your children and grandchildren every day you work is to remind people, don't forget yourself as you live and then discover when you're 80, you wish you had. So the biggest mistake I found spent the first part of my years, I've been a professor at Carolina. I got through school early. I started teaching at Carolina when I was 24. So that was in 1963. So, and many of you I've had in classes before, and many great friends I've had the privilege of working with. But over the years, the beauty of being older and still working and loving to learn, I work really hard and I love every ounce of life I can give to learning, is that to see the opportunity that you can make a difference. So you guys are extremely wise, and the key is help deliver that wisdom. Don't be bashful to ask your grandchildren, your children, what they could learn to improve. Tell them your mistakes. Tell them your faults. One thing I've also learned is very few parents ever sit down and have dinner on a monthly basis and tell them what you've learned. True. Wouldn't it have been nice if your fathers and mothers had sat with you when you were a teenager and said, you know, I really messed up doing this. I wished I'd learned this. Looking hindsight, here were some of my biggest mistakes and biggest successes. Wouldn't that be lovely to do? So in front of you, you see that little notepad? So that's all of our public relations work. So would you spend an hour or two reading that? would you pick up one of those pads? And there's a pin there at the board. Would you write down on that sheet, write your name and date? And would you write down what we call a take-home moneymaker? Please write down. I commit to talking to, and who will you talk to young people? And tell them what you've learned and ask them questions about what they're learning. So commit yourself. September 22nd, 2023, the best day you've ever lived. It's the only day of the 23rd. Okay, but you can't miss the day without committing yourself personally to take action. So who will you talk to? And who will you ask them questions? And when will you do it? Okay, you have 1 minute where you tell the person next to you your answers you just wrote down. So you commit to it. Here we go, 1 minute. We've got to hustle. 59 seconds, 58 seconds.
What? What are we going to talk about? Tell them about your successes, things you've learned, ask them questions. I'm going to take a bigger role for that. I'm working lost. Not my wife's work. All that. So people work from there. You have to travel. They have a couple of hotels. They can take do as well as
So here we go, everybody. Here we go. So here we go, everybody.
One of two grandsons of my son.
So one of the things that I've learned and been fascinated by is there's a high frequency of choosing a career and interest that began with your learning when you were a child. So one of the exercises we won't have time to do, but if you sat down and did the exercise, what was your early childhood like? What did your mother, father, family, culture, situation teach you? What were the challenges you were given? And then how did that mold you? And how did that shape you? And fascinating how powerful the learnings are, and also fascinating, very few people ever actually study their childhood learnings rigorously. True? Yeah. And so we have a wonderful exercise and way to do that, and trying to make it a practical, useful thing. But I just recommend you guys are so smart, you'll figure it out. But that's the kind of thing you want to teach your children. Think how many questions you wish you would have asked your parents or grandparents. True? So you start tonight with your kids, give them the opportunity. So just a couple fun footnotes. So I grew up in, I'll back up. My parents grew up in Salina, Kansas, on farms, met, got married, decided to move to Denver, Colorado to get jobs and an education. So moved to Denver. I was born. World War II had started. My dad drafted and did a bunch of tests and all that stuff, and ended up being sent to Hanford, Washington, working in the atomic bomb plant. So I'm a kid growing up in Hanford, Washington, in the middle of the state of Washington, where they located the plant, which was in the middle of nowhere, but it was near two big rivers, Snake River and the Columbia River, so they could pump out all of the pollution into the rivers. so I grew up about 4 blocks from the pollution, and we were one of the first families in those old military cabins, and so I grew up thinking it was normal to have black cars and people in black suits around my house all the time, and that finally I figured out what was going on as I got a little older. I would always ask my dad what he did, and he would say, well, I go work there. And then I kept on, as the more I learned, I asked him more and more, and he said, well, he'd sign papers saying he couldn't say what he did. He would say, well, it's kind of management and engineering. So that was okay. So from that, my war ended. My dad ended up getting into business, worked in a business. Must have done okay. The owner offered to start another business in another city and give him some of the ownership, which he did. And he, growing up in Kansas on a farm, they had a high work ethic, so I started working. I had jobs when I was 5 and 6, in addition to chores. So selling papers and doing all those things. And then I would work after school on weekends in his company. And then by 7, 8, and 9, I'm a regular at hours after school. I would carry tools and parts and sit around and listen to workers. So imagine growing up with no phones, no TV, no radio. So I had no social media problems. So, and then I'd come home at night. Well, I'd go to work, and I'll tell you, first one of my big events on night or something like that. So I'm carrying tools down to a worker, and a manager came in and just blasted him, weeping him out. And I'm sitting here having live TV, watching this worker and the manager, and thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe this. And that manager is so mean and calling me this and this and this. The manager left, and the worker sitting there, he probably was 50, I assumed he was 90, I think. But he started kind of mumbling and then talking about the manager. That turkey's blankety blank, and I'm sitting here, my eyes like this, hearing a worker impacted by a leader with no understanding of what was going on. And I would go home at night, sitting around the dinner table, and I'd tell my dad, how was your day? And I'd tell him, well, can I imagine? The manager, he was really mean. And my dad must have listened pretty well, because he would listen to me. I never remember feeling reprimanded, but he would gradually start telling me the other side of the story. And well, that's true, however, and it ends up that manager, the worker, had been embezzling, taking significant, expensive, complex parts, selling them out the door, and they decided to give him another chance. And the reason the manager was on him was they were trying to help correct it. So the next day I went back, and I'm sitting next to that worker looking at him, saying, I cannot believe it. And why didn't you tell me to say this, of course? But as those hundreds of those kind of experiences, by the time I was in high school, I had decided in my high school annual picture, it said, what did you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a leadership psychologist. Had no clue what it was. No one taught psychology. And then I went to school and started studying biology and medicine, psychology, and economics, business. Then went to graduate school and studied all those things. And kept on studying those things and learned a lot. And because I had built, without knowing it, an absolute love for trying to figure out how to lead organizations that would cause people to work as hard as they could, as smart as they could, and together. And I had finished school, and I got a wonderful job offer of teaching at Harvard Business School. This was very strange to have someone who's mostly a psychologist, scientist type, teaching at Harvard Business School. So I was teaching there. One of the great things that happened is that the senior faculty at Harvard got a consulting project to reorganize the Coca-Cola company in the world. And I was really lucky because they asked me to work on it. So I pretty much did a lot of the research. So I spent about a year and a half going around the world studying all the leaders and companies in different countries and trying to help contribute how to reorganize the company. So we did that, finished, came back, and in the process, I got to know probably 400 or 500 of the leaders of the company better than most anybody in the world, because I would spend hours interviewing them, talking with their direct reports, talking with their managers. I was young, and at the time, they invited me for the homes for the weekends, so I got to see them with their families and their kids, and see how she treated their family, vice versa. And so I really got to know people and know cultures and know business and systems and how to change people and how to work and what makes success. So when we finished that project, I also had moved. I got an offer one great week. Let me back up a second. Lorenzo, international students. So I'm growing up in Colorado and Denver, and I started at the University of Colorado, and went the end of my freshman year to work at the Brussels Fair in Belgium. So I went on a student ship leaving Montreal with about 1,000 students, and it was a really slow old ship. And there was a wonderful, cute girl on the boat who had a southern accent. And when I met her, she was standing by the side swinging her purse overboard. So shrewd as I am, I went up and said, "Young lady, you're going to lose your purse." And she looked at me with these big blue eyes and a sweet southern accent. And that was Tina, my wife, 63, who was born and raised in Chapel Hill. So we had about 11 days on the boat, and I kept trying to talk her into getting in the lifeboat with me. She never would. So we always tease about that. But talked to her, and she came to the University of Colorado. So we met, got married, and so now I'm at Harvard, and 1 week I've got a wonderful, neat job, promotion offer at Harvard, and then I got one in Carolina. And I went to Tina, I said, and we were living in a faculty house in Cambridge, and I said, "Look at this, you cannot believe I got this and this." I looked at her face, and I realized we were moving to Chapel Hill. So what a gift that was. So we lived about 10 minutes from campus, still do, live in the same house we built. So it's been one of the joys of life is living here and being able to go around the world. But finished that Coke project, and I started getting phone calls from different leaders of the Coca-Cola company asking me, they were getting ready to promote someone or fire someone. What did I think? And I was terrified. So I'm still in my 20s, and I was thinking, listen, I can describe a lot, but you want me to fire this person and promote this one? And then frightening, but I gradually learned a lot about how to do that. So I started getting more and more calls, which ended up in the short conclusion of this is I got calls from the chairman asking if I would meet with them to talk about who should be the next leader of the company. So being young and dumb, I said, sure, happy to. So we're meeting next Friday, and so then I started thinking about, oh my God, what have I done? So I'm gonna go in and talk to these 60-year-olds who spend their life running a business, and I'm gonna go in and offer my suggestions and possibly screw them up royally. So I spent a lot of time knowing the people. And there were 5 main candidates. Everybody knew them, and they all campaigned to get their followers to support them and work with the boards and campaign to be the next leaders. So I went in and remember watching the sun go down on Peachtree in Atlanta, in their headquarters, thinking about I'm going in tomorrow and watching the sun come up. So one of the I knew a lot, and I analyzed a lot. However, this was a big deal. I also had concluded there was another leader that was not one of the 5, who I thought was even better than the 5. But he was not one they considered, and he was also from Black America. So, and I debated whether to bring it up and screw them up or leave. So the meeting went on, spent many hours talking about the 5 prospects. And then
sorry, I didn't get that. Could you?
So
Dr. Miller, fix yourself, please. I'm going to leave it there. I was turning it off.
I'll try harder to talk louder. So I debated whether to bring up this other candidate. So we kind of finished and was a little quiet and kind of ending the conversation. I said, can I bring up another topic? With that, and I said, there's another leader who I think is really good and you might consider. And it was very quiet. People squirmed a little bit. And finally, the chairman, unbeknownst to me, said, well, go ahead, Dr. Bell. What do you think? So I ended up talking for quite a while, and it's the short version, long story. Ended up, unbeknownst to me, the chairman wanted him anyhow. And it ended up he got it. And it was really great for me because I got to fly Air Gulfstream 20 to Rio de Janeiro to offer him the job. So it was really great. We went up to this beautiful penthouse, and he had no idea why we were coming. And we got there and chatted, and he said, well, put on some music. And we had some wine, and we put on music. I was thinking it was Beethoven's 6th Symphony or something. It was Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. so yeah, offered him the job and then helped.
Oh, wow, good story.
Implement it. And what do you do about the 5 people who didn't get it? So, but from that experience, I decided I was going to devote my life to knowing and finding out how to be a great leader and what the answers were. So I had read the literature extensively. And then we started going out and asking people. And if I had time, I would ask you this. I'll just do it 2 seconds. In your life so far, who is the very best leader you have ever known personally? If you're here with your spouse, the second best leader. But if you thought of who is the very best one you've ever known personally, and then what you write down, what does they do? How did they behave? So in reading literature, I decided I'm just going to go out and find them. So I started asking people, who is the very best leader you have ever known? And then I would do rigorous discussions. What do they do? How do they do this? And how do they do this? And what do they do? How do they give you feedback? How do they react to feedback? What do they do when they fail? How well do they listen? How well do they explain what they're doing? When they fail, what do they do the next day? Really extensive examples of behavior. Then if I ask you, who is the worst leader you've ever had?
Please, nobody answer me.
Yeah, usually. So then I ask people, would you tell me what is your worst leader? So today on September 27th, 2023, and our colleagues, we have several 100,000. You say several, if you say 1,000, 2,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, we have more than that descriptions of the best leaders in the world. So we really know how to be an effective leader. And we have hundreds of thousands of descriptions of the worst leaders in the world. So we really know how to be ineffective. And then what we do is spend our life helping people learn how they lead and what behaviors, personality characteristics they can develop to have more of the behavior of best practices of the best leaders. Because we basically look at what works. And that since no one is perfect, we all have weaknesses. How to reduce it? So may I ask, would you all accept that you're not perfect? Would you all? So as you learn, we know it, and you might as well enjoy it. So have some fun. Would you look at the person next to you and tell them you're not perfect? Just go ahead. It's hard. I'm not perfect. I want to be wrong. I'm not perfect. Oh, come So here we go. So I've got a few more minutes. So would you do this? So I've talked a lot, and you guys are so smart. I can look at your faces that you have a million things going on in your mind. Would you do this? Would you tell your buddies next to you what you were thinking about while I was talking? So you got 2-minute download. As fast as you can, would you tell me what was going on in their mind?
Great story of yours about going to Rio de Janeiro. Where was I when Wade was on?
Can't see. Oh, you can't see. That's good. I'm glad they're taking this away. And they turned you in.
Yeah, I heard the verse of that. Just thinking, fantastic exercise to study. And where is there a distillation of that? I've read the Carolina paper, I don't think it's in there. If you could just get somebody to pause and listen. Good luck with that.
His wife, second and third. So you wouldn't see, you wouldn't know I'll be around and sit down on the bed. We have to. No, I don't got somewhere else. Have to. We never asked. It was big. We would get free drinks and do free times.
Yeah, I can see you doing that.
We've been rooting for that. So here we go. I've been a professor while I'm learning all these things and teaching most of this at university, and still technically an adjunct professor. But my goal is to be the oldest professor that can. I'm pretty close. So you're getting close. These things I've learned along the way is takes longer than we have to teach. But from doing the work, if you do what I do while you're not working, I'm learning and teaching and training, and then finding how to help people like you guys, great leaders, build and succeed and contribute. And so I've gotten into a lot of situations because of spending a lot of time doing what I do. And I will mention to you, remind you, leadership was not taught at universities. So the word when people hear, they want to teach leadership. People laugh and dismiss it. You're either born leader or that's it. And in the world with people, and I know that's not the case. So you certainly learn, and you have genetics. We spend a lot of time studying. But we also know people can change. And we spend a lot of time studying neurosciences and neuroplasticity and epigenetics and things like that. It's hard to change. Many people don't change. Single biggest mistake I think human beings make in their life is to decide at some early age, well, this is who I am, and I'm going to stay that way. Biggest single mistake I think a human being can make. The best decision a human being ever makes, and you guys, I would recommend you make it today, is recommit yourself to building yourself. So if you ever say you're too old and you don't contribute anymore, then I would recommend you go outside, get a stick, and whack yourself 3 times. What a flunker. A massive flunker. But you want to, so everyone says and learn, and I spent a lot of time early on. Studying leadership. Leaders lead by example. So a good scientist, that's exactly what does that mean. People say, well, you're not afraid to do what you ask people to do. Okay, and what else? And that was about it. So, but then studying that a lot, I've come to the conclusion, it's really a wonderful point. To lead by example means you personally have to become the example you want others to do. If you really want to lead, if you want to give your children and grandchildren a gift. Show them a brilliant, eager to learn, active, fun, vibrant human being. They will become like you. So we transmit our strengths to our kids and grandkids and our friends, and we transmit our weaknesses. So when they see you learning, they're inspired, encouraged. The best gift you can give is to become what you wish you were. Does that make sense, you guys? So also, I've got one I'll tell you fun. One of my first assignments, several of you have been asking me different kind of experiences, people I've worked with. One of my early training, I had an unusual program where I went to graduate school, and they had gotten grants from the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and others to do an experimental practice. Basically, it was studying medicine and psychology and how to be a good physician. So one of my first internship when I'm still really in the beginning of graduate school was go to a VA hospital in Norfolk, Virginia, and spend several weeks on the floor where all the people were dying. So I'm growing up a kind of a normal kid, no sports, etc. And there were bunk beds of older veterans who were lined up, and my assignment was to work all night with them, helping them and caring for them. But it was a staggering experience, and that was a little bit of the beginning of starting doing the work I did at a young age. I've worked with a lot of people in the 50s, 80s, 60s. And what I found that there's a gift in life most people are missing. And by studying medicine and science, I got to realize that probably one of the best things you will ever do is invest in your health so that you have it, so you can contribute. So I started doing a bunch of research, and I'll just tell you two seconds on. So I started reading the literature more carefully on aging and health and longevity, and I started 6 years ago doing that. So before it was really as popular as it is now, I studied sleep and things like that 50 years ago. So I was teaching why you should sleep 60 years ago, and nutrition and all that stuff. So I started going around asking people this question. I'll ask it for you. So if you look back at your life, what has given you the greatest amount of happiness in your life so far? What kind of experiences? And what were they? And then what has given you the greatest amount of pain and unhappiness? So I started a whole bunch of research doing that, and without going through it all, but it basically ended up with my first goal, sample size. I would interview at least 4,000 older people, and I'd ask them that question, which I started and I did. So then it's expanded to many, many, many more. So we have now come to answers. So there's 7 major sets of human experiences that people all say those are the things that give them the most happiness if you do it well. They're also the same things that give you the most pain if you do it poorly. So would you like to know those?
Yeah.
So you know them, and so it sounds funny, but I'll just list them. I'm going to start, and I'll just start with number 2. I'm going to leave number 1 open for a minute. Number 2, overwhelming, most popular, frequent list on people's reflections in life, and it's real experience. It's not just checking off the boxes. Was family. So, like what? What is the ability to give love to a human being, and the ability to be loved is your greatest cause of happiness. And if you grew up with a childhood where you didn't have love, didn't learn how to do it, feel awkward, estranged, afraid, then start it tonight. Don't ever let a day go by without making the world a better place by giving the best of yourself. So don't be shy, don't be inhibited. Every human being would like to have someone else be a friend and care for them. So if you struggle with giving love, then start tonight. Life is too precious not to. Can't be perfect. You have some ups and downs, lots of fights. The overwhelming theme is keep at it. So it's like, and I'm again nothing special. I screw up on a daily basis. But I set a goal for myself is I never want to see another human being or say hi unless I can do something that when we're through, even if it's to shake hands, that you feel better and are better. Even if it's like Jennifer, I love to death, admire her. So that's a gift. So family. Third item, everyone, would be that everybody said one of the great joys in life was their work. And just absolutely loved to work. Also, by the way, everybody said one of the main pains of my life was work. And we all have hundreds of those experiences. By the way, also, everyone said the biggest pain and sadnesses in my life had been family. So the secret, well, let's build the skills. So I've got a wonderful book I've been working on for years. This is a year to get it. It's not done. It has all of this in it. All these in it. So it's about how to do it. How do you go about doing it? So the third element is work. So you really want to get at that. You guys know what. Number 4 is health. So everybody, I'll tell you funny. My mom and dad, my dad become a wonderful guy and mom. They retired from Colorado and lived in Topeka, California, Palm Springs area. He was a doctor at a neat place.
Oh, that's great.
So I tried to get out when I could, fly out to Palm Springs, and Dad would always want me to play golf with him, and I played a bit of golf. So I would do it, and then, but he would always joke about my son, the professor, with his buddies. So he had a bunch of cronies that they would get with, and so after we played golf, we went into this country club and sit around with his friends, and they'd start asking me questions about these students today, or they're a bunch of losers, and they don't work hard, and why do you do this? And so I'm sitting there, I had a wonderful experience. Started this research on the top 44,000 people, happiness and so on. So I said, can I ask you guys a question? So these were all really successful leaders. In fact, where's our Boeing leader back here? One of them was one of the C-suite leaders from Boeing, buddies. So I said, can I ask you? And they all looked at me a little bit, and I said, if you look back over your life, what were the things that caused you the most happiness? So it was really quiet. And my dad looked at me and said, oh, Lord, here it goes again. And then one guy started talking, and then another guy started talking. And so this was like 12 o'clock. And then it's like one table here, and then another table came over. So at 5 o'clock, there were about this many people, guys sitting there debating the answers. And then it was really fun. Went back to my dad's house, and a bunch of them kept calling him with more ideas. That's 2 minutes. 2 minutes ago, thank you. So next is money. The thing that people say, live in money, never learn much about it. No family sit around and talk about money, what to do with it, how to earn it, how to realize money doesn't make you happy. Money is simply a ticket for giving you opportunities. And then the next one is having a purpose, a mission, vision, and core values. So as you get older, you'll find that true happiness significantly is determined by do you feel you do something about it.
Useful there, yeah.
True?
Yes.
And every one I recommend to you tonight, make sure you tell all your children, grandchildren, why you're there. what you're doing. My purpose is to try to help build people, who help build human beings, who help build organizations, right? That give dignity and success to them. So find yours, articulate it, and the last domain is fun. Everyone said that, a lot more fun. So is that smelling the roses? Yes, but that's not it. Laugh more, worry less, and laugh at your own screw-ups, and then get up. Aren't those 7 great domains, everybody?
Yes.
So everybody.
What's number one?
Number one, thank you. Number one, the biggest thing that causes everybody the most happiness, and if they do it well, is your own self, your personality. The biggest thing that causes the most pain is your personality. True.
That would be true.
So if you really want to be happy, you have to like yourself. You have to enjoy yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And you have to become healthy. Good news, we know what that is. And we know how to do it. So
One quick question. Could you recommend your favorite book to us, of yours, if we wanted to learn your system a little more, please?
So I'll do a quick one, and we've got a whole bunch of them. The one I did with Dean Smith is a really fun, practical book. So I worked with Coach Smith, basketball here for many years, and wrote, it became a New York Times bestseller. It's called Carolina Way. So it's a lot of his stories and so on. So, hey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. One of the most introspective and reflective programs in my 18 years of Rotary. Thank you very much. Very, very good. Everybody, don't forget one quick note. We have our first pop-up of the Clayton administration coming up October the 5th at the arcade, Baxter's Arcade on Graham Street, 5:30 until. Come by, bring your pinball wizards with you, and let's get some pinball on. Everybody have a great weekend. Go Eagles!